Hello, this is Dr. Embody, and I'd like to go over some of the questions on the exam. The average on the exam was 65, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of the ones that less than half the class got right. If you want to send me some email about, um, you know, wondering what the correct answer was on any of these, or meet with me or whatever, that's fine. I'm going to go over the ones that most people missed here. So we've got some warm-up ones on the to start with on the first page, and my notation here is this is question number 3 on form B, and also question number 3 on both forms, and the order of the answering varied. So we're taking 1 mod 5, and what that means is if we go back to sort of third grade division, we've got we're dividing 1 by 5. 5 goes into that 0 times 5 is 0, subtract, and we get a remainder of 1, and it's the remainder of 1 that's the answer on that one. Okay, so suppose we have mini and we want to make mono. So it turns out that this is the right one, so I will replace all of the O's. It won't just replace the first one, it will replace all of them. The others are wrong. We can't have, we can't, a string is immutable, so we can't change it change parts of it with the assignment. And this one only changes one of the O's, not both of one of the I's to an O, not both of them. So clearly it can't be all the above and it can't be none of the above because it's the first one there. On the opening of a file for reading, R indicates reading, but that is also the default. And so if we leave it out, that is the one that will be chosen. So in fact, that is true. If I now go to the next one, let's see here. So this was figure 3 on A, and oops, let me get my pen going here. There it is. So how do we go about doing this one? Actually, the one that caused problems was, if I remember correctly, let me check my notes here. The one that caused problems was, oh, yeah, there were two problems here. What was printed by line 3 and what happened with line 1 does in fact the else get printed. Now if we take a look at these, my string is ISO for the character in the string, so that means the first time through this my character will be the first character, which is I. And now we check, is I less than 0, less than O, little o, and that is true. In fact, it's true whether it's a capital I or a lowercase I. So we do the continue, which means we go back and we get the next character. And so now my CH will be a Z, and we'll come down and we take the lower of it, which doesn't matter, and so Z is in that string, so we have my count get 1 bigger. So my count 1 started out at 0, my count 2 started out at 0, so now my count 1 has a value of 1, and my count 2 still has a value of 0. Next character is, we go grab the next character, it's a Z again, so the exact same thing happens. It's in there, so we add 1 to my count. Count 1 now has a value of 2. Count 2 still hasn't changed. Then I get the next character, which is the O. Is O less than O? That's false, so we don't do the continue. We come down. Is O and WXYZ? No. So we don't change the count. That still has a count 1. That still has a value of 2. Count 2 will now have a value of 1. We're done with my loop. Notice that there's no break in there. There's no break. So because there's no break, I do go into the else that's with the 4, and so I do print else. So that line will be printed. My count 1 has a value of 2, and my count 2 has a value of 1. So so these go, so when we look at these, what's printed by line 2, that would have been the 2. What's printed by line 3, that would have been a 1. And then at the end, does the else get printed? And the answer is yes, it does. Okay, but notice, actually right here, it's probably worth mentioning that, oops, get here, boom. It's worth mentioning that notice how I wrote everything down. I didn't try to do anything in my head. Wrote it all down, and that's the only way to do it. If you try to do it in your head, you're going to have trouble. All right, let's take a look at the next one that's here. That was figure 5, had the same number in both of them. And on this one, I believe it was the last question that caused the most trouble. Yes. And nearly half the people got it, but let me take a quick look at that one. So really what's being asked here is what's going on with my my range value here. So whoops, no, not this one. So let's see, so we're looking at index. So index is here. So when this value is being input in here, 1, 2, 3, that the length of that is 5. So we're really looking at for index in the range of 1 to 5. And what's the last value of index? Well, remember with the range we go up to but not including the last one. So we go through 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we stop. Okay, so the last one, the last value of index will be 4. It doesn't go one beyond it and then try to stop. It just goes, you know, this is a for loop, goes to the range, goes through each of those, and index will have its value of 4 at the end. And you know, part of this actually, so some people who've programmed before might have gotten in a C style language might have gotten tripped up by that because it behaves differently. Hey, this is Python. Okay, then the last one that caused trouble was this one, the very last question. And I thought of, you know, when I write an exam, you know, there are some questions that I'll put on there that I think are very hard, and I think only the people who are going to get a 4-point are going to get that, and this is one of those. So there's 2 different ways to write to a file. One is using the writes statement, so outfile.write, and the other is printing with file equals outfile. Now the big difference here, which I think is what probably trip people up, is that prints always have a carriage return at the end. Always. Unless you say something like end equals space or something like that. The default is to have a carriage return. So given that, what happens? Okay, so we open my file for writing, and then I write a 1 into the file, the string 1, but there is no carriage return on the right. Then I come and I write 2, that'll be written right next to it. That will be followed by a carriage return, but notice this next print doesn't have an out file in it. So this one gets written onto your screen instead of the file. Then I close the file, so it's 1, 2. That's the answer to that one. Kind of a hard one. And again, if you have other questions, feel free to send me an email, and we'll take a look at that.